Get comfortable becoming uncomfortable. The best learning happens when you're outside your comfort zone. So that brings us to our topic. What is effective communication? So effective communication, as they rightly said, is something that your listener should be able to understand. Okay, so it's about if I'm having a conversation with Mr. Sujit or Mohan Raj, what am I saying? Are they understanding or not? Are they remembering what I'm saying or not? Have I made an impact on them or not? That is the most important part. Many of us are very good at using high-end Tharoor vocabulary, Shashi Tharoor vocabulary, but that may not be understood by your listener, so it doesn't make any sense. You have noticed many people using accents. Doesn't impress anyone unless you really get your point across. Since all of your management students are about to take on careers in the corporate world, we are going to restrict our conversation to communication in the workplace. Okay, how is communication very important in the workplace? According to some research, about $62 million is lost each year because of ineffective communication in the workplace. So workplace productivity is hampered because people don't communicate effectively. They don't get their point across. Let me give a few examples from my own experience observing people from the industry. Take the example of a salesperson trying to win over a customer. So just talking in English or any language for that matter is not communication. Spending the right amount of time with your prospect, getting the right points across to the client in a proper sequence. Let me take a framework called a beginning, a body, and end of a conversation. Am I starting my conversation appropriately? Am I putting across the right points in the sequence which is understood by the listener? And finally, am I summarizing my points at the end of my conversation so that the listener takes away the highlights of the conversation when he leaves? Else, whatever time is spent is wasted. About 20 years ago, as per research, the average attention span was about 20 minutes, which means that if I started the conversation at 9:30, I can have your attention for about till 9:50 or so. Beyond which, most of you would start dreaming or thinking about your family or some work outside. But today, as per 2023 research, the average attention span is 45 seconds. Means, unless the topic is really, really interesting, within 45 seconds, you would start checking your WhatsApp messages, you would start thinking about what to do on the weekend, and you will start praying that the session get over early. Okay. So 45 seconds, only 45 seconds, which means by the time you have started the conversation, it's already ended. People are dreaming about something else. Right? So which means that communication becomes even more imperative. Good communication becomes even more imperative in today's world. So that's the wandering super brain. Hope nobody is dreaming, else we can do that exercise again, standing up and drawing triangles and circles. Okay. So all three of you know cycling? Okay. So please tell the audience, when did you learn cycling? When was the last time you cycled?
So I started cycling when I was a very young age, like 6 or 7 years old, and the last I cycled was like in my 10th standard.
I learned cycling around 6, 7, 8 years when I was old, and the last, I think, in 2019 I have done cycling.
Cycling? If I get your cycle now, will you be able to start cycling? Okay. So I want the volunteers to answer these questions. Who was the first Governor General of British India? You studied, no? Any of the questions for that matter. Most of us don't know all five. Some of us know one or two, right? But all of us know cycling. All of us remember cycling. Why is that? Stand up and answer. Whoever wants to answer, please stand up. Yes. We have practiced it for a long time. Okay, thank you. Fallen many times and learned. Okay. But there comes my little secret, which I'm going to share with you now. Some of you already answered it in a different manner, saying that we practice a lot. In studies, we don't practice a lot, and that is why we miss out. So let's go to the next slide now. Let's watch this video, but this cycle is a little different. So they've just changed the direction of the handle. So if you try to turn it left, the cycle goes to the right. If you go right, it takes you to the left, and so on.
You try to ride it. It only changed one thing. When you turn the handlebar to the left, the wheel goes to the right. When you turn it to the right, the wheel goes to the left. I thought this would be easy, so I hopped on the bike ready to demonstrate how quickly I could conquer this.
And here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Destin Sandlin. First attempt riding the bicycle.
All right. So the faster I go, the better.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. You can see that I'm laughing, but I'm actually really frustrated. In this moment, I had a really deep revelation. My thinking was in a rut. This bike revealed a very deep truth to me. I had the knowledge of how to operate the bike, but I did not have the understanding. Therefore, knowledge is not understanding. It doesn't work. Your brain cannot handle this. For instance, this guy, I offered him $200 just to ride this bike 10 feet across the stage. Everybody thought he could do it.
No, you didn't understand. You didn't understand. So, this way. Now that, okay, all right, just a second. All right, so, whenever you're ready, yeah. Wait. No, you have to keep your feet on. Dude, look, all right, here we go. Wait. Like, you gotta start rolling at least. Go. And go.
So do you think we can learn this ulta cycle? Possible? Possible, it is possible. Just like that circle and triangle, this is very much possible, but it's easier for kids. All of you know to button your shirt, unbutton your shirt? Okay. What if tomorrow you lose your memory, you suffer from amnesia? Will you forget to unbutton your shirt or forget to ride a bicycle? Forget to open the door, how to open the door? If you have amnesia, will you forget that? But you will forget your name, your family's names, facts, right? Why is that? Why is it that we don't forget how to button our shirt, how to open the door? So you're going to develop an unfair advantage in business communication skills if you start using this part of your brain to learn communication. Communication you cannot learn by sitting in a classroom on how to improve communication. You cannot improve your communication by reading a book on how to improve communication. Okay, you don't learn swimming by reading a book on how to learn swimming, how to do swimming. You don't learn driving a car by reading a manual on driving a car. You actually start driving a car. You actually get into the swimming pool. So similarly, all the coaching classes which give you lectures and gyan on communication skills, please stop attending those classes. Okay? I'm not saying theory is not important, but what is more important is applying that theory into practice to see an impact. Okay, so this is exactly what we are going to see, how this wonder brain is going to help you improve your communication skills. So there is something called, if you remember old films, I don't know how many of you relate to old films, Nana Patekar's films, you know, Chota Dimag. So there is something called a little brain, the cerebellum, which is only 10% of our overall brain, but has almost 80% of the neurons in the body, in the brain. But unfortunately, that is not utilized properly. We try to utilize the rest of the brain because we have been told left brain, right brain, top brain, bottom brain. So all this gyan has been given. So we keep focusing on those parts of the brain. So cerebellum is what we have to tap into in case you want to learn communication just like a sport, just like how you do cycling, just like how you open a door, just like how you button your shirt. So that is exactly how you should be learning communication, by doing it, by repeatedly practicing it. I'll tell you the science also behind it. Next slide. So this is how our brain compared to the rest of the animals. But anyway, next slide. So this is the little brain I'm talking about, situated on the back side. The more you use, better it is for you. And I have experimented this personally, plus I have done this for several corporate employees. So it works. Next slide, please. So what are neurons? Some science, I won't bore you too much. So neurons are something that sends messages in a very simple language, that sends messages across the body. So neurons are connected to each other using synapses. Yes. So there are synaptic connections in our brain. So each neuron is connected to the another neuron. So we have about 100 billion such neurons in our brain. Okay. So the more you practice, the more these synaptic connections become stronger for that particular area. Okay, so a child is actually born with much more neurons than he or she would eventually use in her lifetime. But as the child grows up, the unused neurons are destroyed, the unused synaptic connections, and whichever area he's been practicing, he does better. That is why it is important that children also are exposed to multiple things in childhood so that they can develop skill sets in these areas. So 3 ways to improve communication skills by practice. First, you need to speak. Second, you need to write. And third, you need to read. Out of which, speaking and reading is the most critical, because you're going to speak to people most of the time. Writing is, of course, optional, except in business communication. Most of the time, you won't want to become an author. Okay. So speaking and reading is critical. Let's see how we can utilize this to improve our communication skills. Next slide, please. So first, do a SWOT analysis of your own communication, introspect, and figure out where you're going wrong. Try to take feedback from people on where you're going wrong. Maybe you're fumbling, maybe you're nervous, maybe you're using the wrong vocabulary, maybe you're using filler words like you know. That is also a filler word. I may also be using it occasionally. Now this takes you to the structure of a conversation. As I said earlier, every conversation broadly should have 3 parts: beginning, body, and end. How you begin a conversation so that the context of the conversation is clear to the listener and you get his attention. Then comes the body of the conversation, which should be sequenced properly. And finally, a summary of what you had spoken for last 10 minutes or 15 minutes. So that should also be said at the end: beginning, body, and end. So that is how you should be doing it. Go back to the previous slide, please, for a minute. So structure, narration, grammar, and body language. So we spoke about structure. Next is narration. How do you articulate stuff, which requires a good holdover vocabulary. So we will see how to improve vocabulary. So once you have a structure in place, that is the beginning, body, and end. Second is the narration, the way you articulate your thoughts to the audience. Third is the grammar part. You don't require the entire Renan Martin to communicate with your colleagues and friends, but basic business English is required so that you can make an impact on your audience. So that takes us to the grammar part. And finally, the body language. So when I say body language, it's not just about power dressing. It's also about the way you modulate your voice, your tone, your pitch, emphasizing on stuff that is important, de-emphasizing on stuff that is not so important in a conversation. So these 4 pillars, if you follow, you will be able to communicate more effectively. The best way to learn, I was watching an interesting video the other day. So it says, if you brush with your right hand, start brushing with your left hand. Okay, do something that makes you uncomfortable every day. If you have been taking one particular route to your school or office, start taking another route that makes you uncomfortable. Yeah, thank you so much. So let me give you something interesting to read. This is for you. You can start off with that first topic.
Good morning, everybody. So the topic I have got to read is European Central Bank is set to hawkish pause as the economy turns south. So it is frank up, the European Central Bank. Yes, sir. So all right, after doing this activity, certain things I found out while reading was, first of all, vocabulary. So there were few words which were out of my vocabulary, so pronouncing that was a little bit difficult, which got me nervous here standing. The other thing which I would say is, when there are no commas and full stop in the long sentences, how to divide them while speaking is a bit difficult, because there were few sentences, like 2-3 sentences, there was no comma and full stop in between. So I had to divide it into words on of my own only. The other thing is voice modulation and pitch, intonation, all of those. So I feel that I need to work on more on voice modulation.
So this reading exercise, I'm going to tell you how to do it so that it can be more useful for you. So whenever you read something. So next slide, please. Okay, this is a graph of what I did in the last 30 days. I recorded about 60 to 70 videos. So every day morning I get up, I record a video. So that helps me improve also. Okay, so go back to the previous slide. So when you read, there are multiple benefits. One, you are improving your speech hygiene, the way you pronounce your words, the way you speak, your tone, your modulation, that you can start working on when you read loudly. Second, as one of the volunteers said, I could not make out how to pronounce the word and what is the meaning of that particular word. So what do you do? When you read something loudly every day, pick that word, go to an online dictionary like, let's say, cambridge.org, find out the meaning of that word, check the pronunciation. The pronunciation option is also there. Find out how the word is pronounced and start using that word for the next 10 days in your conversations. So when you speak to your colleagues, your friends, your relatives, start using that word. So which means that you are permanently imbibing that word in your vocabulary, in your memory bank. So assume a simple exercise which took hardly maybe about 5 to 7 minutes to read an article. If you identify only 2 new words every day and you do this for around 300 days in a year, you have actually learned 600 new words and added them to your vocabulary list. Plus, you have learned how to pronounce these words. Plus, you have built confidence of speaking. Plus, you have improved your speech hygiene. Isn't that wonderful? Without investing any money on any coaching class, you are building your own communication skills. You require a coach only when you need some inputs on maybe how you are doing. You require a sounding board. You require a coach. You don't require a teacher. Okay, you don't require somebody to stand and give a lecture on nouns and pronouns. You can do that yourself and apply and practice. This is what is required when you read every day. Can we see the previous slide once? Okay, so this is what we spoke about. When I say parts of Bolo, when you speak every day, this is what you should be doing. Structure, narration, grammar, and body language. Structure, again, how you are structuring your conversation so that you hold the attention of your audience. Second is about articulation. That is where your vocabulary will come handy. The way you narrate your thoughts. Story. Anything that you tell in the form of a story is going to hold the attention. Think of it like a movie. You go to a movie hall, you try to watch a cinema, and the producer has invested crores of rupees in making that film. But if the start is not good, you've already lost interest. And at the end, you just say, faltu tha, and you just walk out. All the effort gone down the drain, isn't it? So it has to be told in a nice manner. It has to be narrated in a nice manner so that you hold attention. Grammar is important, but as I said, the entire Renan Martin is not required. What is required in business English, please try to only pick up that. And finally, body language, the way you dress is important, but what is more important is the way you narrate, the way you speak, your tone, your modulation, voice modulation, your tone, your pitch, all that is more important. So if you start doing this every day, you're going to improve. Believe me, we have been doing this with people from the corporate sector. It is not students. I do this day in and out, the reading exercise that you just did right now. We do this with people right from the shop floor to CXO level. Chief of staff, chief sales officers, chief marketing officers, vice presidents, directors. All these people also require coaching. They also get coached. So there's nothing to be shy if you're not good at communication. There are people who are experts in their domains, but not able to articulate properly. And they get coached from us. We work with the best of multinationals and Indian corporates, and we coach employees to become more effective communicators and finally become more productive at the workplace. So it's going to take about, from empirical evidence, anywhere between 16 weeks to 24 weeks is what is required if you consistently do this every day. This is the final one, audio versus video. This you can do it yourself at home and try. Try recording an audio of yourself speaking, okay? And then try recording the same stuff in front of a camera on a video. You will notice the difference. You will notice how confident or not confident you are. Okay, just like most of you were shy to come to the stage, right, when we called you. Some of you volunteered to come, but majority of you were hesitant to even come forward. Try this exercise at home, record an audio clip, okay, and then record a video clip of the same stuff. It's not like chatting with your friend. When you start your camera and start recording serious stuff, that is when you realize your own strengths and weaknesses. Okay, so as I said, you don't require a teacher. You don't require a school teacher to teach you grammar and communication. You require practice. You may require at best a coach who can act as a sounding board and tell you where you are going wrong. That's all. Okay, so don't waste lakhs of rupees on learning English, at various coaching classes, not required. But daily practice is essential, just like how you would go walking, jogging, or to the gym. Who is willing to take up the 16-week challenge? Who wants to improve communication and take up this challenge and show a transformation within yourself?